My husband had been developing overseas markets for a year and returned with a fortune. I went to the airport with a bouquet of flowers to greet him, only to see him supporting his pregnant personal assistant, looking every bit the expectant father. Everyone watched me, expecting a scene, thinking I would swallow my pride and quietly accept my fate. My pride and my love were being trampled and humiliated by the man I loved most. Today was the day my husband, David, was returning after a year abroad. I had tidied up the house early, personally prepared a box of his favorite pastries, and rushed to the airport to ensure he could have something warm to eat. I held the container in my arms the entire time. At the arrivals gate, many of David's senior executives and long-time employees had gathered. After what felt like an eternity of craning our necks, the figure I had longed for finally appeared. David was dressed in a black suit, broad-shouldered and narrow-waisted, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking as refined and capable as ever. My heart leaped with joy. I stood on my toes and called his name, but in the next second, my smile froze. Behind David walked a woman with a noticeable baby bump. It was his assistant, Chloe. David had his arm around Chloe's shoulders, carefully shielding her in his embrace, constantly on guard against the passing crowd. Chloe, in turn, played the part of a shy, demure woman, resting her head on David's shoulder, her eyes practically sparkling with affection. The company employees fell silent, their expressions a mixture of everything as they looked at me. "Honey," I called out, still hoping there was some misunderstanding. But David ignored me, his gaze passing over me to land on his staff. "Mark, did you bring the plum juice I asked for?" Yes. I queued up at the old-timey shop just as you instructed. "The sourness is just right, too." His subordinate handed over a thermos. David personally poured a cup, tested the temperature with his lips, and then held it to Chloe's mouth. "Weren't you feeling a bit nauseous before we boarded? Drink this slowly. It will help." Chloe caressed her belly and glanced at me, seemingly unintentionally. "But my arm is a little sore." David immediately understood, holding the cup and feeding her in full view of everyone. This gesture was a public declaration. He was the father of the child in Chloe's womb. Chloe was instrumental in securing several major deals during this overseas expansion. From today on, her position is no longer assistant, but vice president of the company. After David's loud announcement, the rest of the company swarmed around them, offering congratulations. I was pushed to the very back, and the container of pastries fell to the floor. The still, warm treats were trampled by everyone's shoes, crushed beyond recognition. The heart shape I had carefully made completely obliterated. The crowd was still buzzing, suggesting a celebration dinner for David and Chloe to welcome them back. David shook his head. "Thank you all for the kind thought, but we're both exhausted. Chloe and the baby need to rest. Besides, I have something important to do. Let's do it another day." Hearing he had something important to do, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Was he going to explain things to me face to face? But as he supported Chloe and walked past me, he seemed to notice my presence for the first time. "Sophie," he said casually, "I need to take Chloe for a prenatal check. You go home first. I'll contact you when I have time." With that, David helped Chloe into a Porsche Cayenne and sped away. In that moment, my heart shattered into a million pieces. In the crowd, a female employee whispered, "Mr. Green is such a good man, taking her for a check. Even when he's so busy." The person next to her tugged her arm and gestured towards me. They all exchanged knowing glances and walked away. The once bustling arrivals gate was now empty, except for me. I crouched down, took out a tissue, and gathered the cold, ruined pastries back into the container. Tears fell silently. 2 years ago, I had also been pregnant, but when David found out, he flew into the biggest rage I had ever seen. He tore the report to shreds, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at me. "Didn't we use protection every time? You tampered with it, didn't you?" I knew his career was his top priority, and he had told me after we got married that he didn't want children so soon. But I never expected him to be so vehemently against this unexpected new life. My mother had passed away when I was young, and my father was seriously ill at the time. His dying wish was to see me have a child. So, I tearfully begged David to let me keep the baby, but he refused in the harshest terms. No. I'm still young, with endless possibilities. I don't want to be tied down by raising a child to make me give up. David even found numerous case studies of postpartum complications to show me, trying to scare me with how terrible childbirth could be. When I still wouldn't agree, he secretly put a fever-reducing medication that could cause birth defects in the water he gave me when I had a fever. When I found out the truth, I cried inconsolably, but the medicine was already in my system. Even the doctor advised me not to keep the baby. With no other choice, I went for the abortion alone. Lying in the recovery room, I called David, hoping he would come pick me up. But he said the company was having a welcome party for a new colleague, and as the boss, he couldn't be absent. He told me to go home by myself. That new colleague was Chloe. After losing the child, my father was overcome with grief. He didn't make it through that winter and passed away. I was consumed by guilt and grief, losing over 20 pounds in a month. David, perhaps out of a guilty conscience, even pretended to comfort me. He said that in a few years, when he wasn't so busy, we would have another child, and my parents' spirits would be at peace. At that time, I had lost everything. I could only cling to David, doubling my efforts to be good to him. David had a sensitive stomach, so I learned to cook Western, Chinese, and nutritious meals. My once delicate hands becoming covered in scars. David had a thing for cleanliness, so I took care of everything myself, keeping the villa spotless. David loved flowers and plants, so I studied horticulture, tirelessly cultivating rare plants. For him, I had lost myself, but in David's eyes, this was all just pathetic self-pity. He said he wasn't the type to share his feelings publicly, so he never took me to social events, and his social media was devoid of any mention of me. But tonight, I saw that he had updated his social media. Day 1888 of our meeting. Every day with you is a new miracle of life. The accompanying photo showed his hand, wearing a Rolex, intertwined with a woman's hand adorned with a 10-carat diamond ring. Before or after our marriage, David had never bought me a ring. He had never gotten me a gift for any holiday or anniversary. It turned out he didn't dislike sharing his feelings publicly. He just thought I wasn't presentable enough. I lay on the sofa in a daze, my eyes empty. I had seen that ring in the house before. I thought it might have been a wedding anniversary gift he was preparing for me. I never imagined it would end up on Chloe's hand. David didn't come home that night. I curled up on the sofa and fell asleep at some point. I had a beautiful dream. In it, David and I had our own child. But when I woke up, a wave of disappointment washed over me. I ran to the balcony, gasping for air. I checked my phone but saw no messages. With a silent, bitter smile, I decided to go to the company and demand an explanation from David. He didn't like children. He was worried a child would restrict his freedom. When I arrived at the company, the receptionist saw me and immediately started making a frantic phone call. By the time I reached the top floor, I found Mark waiting for me at the door. "Sophie, what are you doing here?" He blocked my way. Every time I moved, he shifted, preventing me from getting near the office. "Move. I need to see David." I bit my lip, staring at Mark, but he just smiled and shook his head. "I'm sorry, Sophie. Mr. Green is with Miss Chloe." "No, I mean, Vice President Chloe right now. They're discussing work. It's not a good time for him to see you." He was David's childhood friend and now the head of the company's logistics department. He was also Chloe's cousin. What kind of work needs to be discussed in secret, away from everyone else? I stared at Mark, demanding an answer. Mark shrugged indifferently. "You know, the usual stuff. As his wife, shouldn't you be aware of the changes in him?" Then he sneered in a low voice. "If I were you, I'd just keep pretending to be clueless. It's better for everyone that way. You know whose baby Chloe is carrying better than anyone, don't you?" He looked at me provocatively, his words like a taunt. But he had picked the wrong day to provoke me. I raised my clenched right hand and slapped him across the face. The crisp sound drew the attention of several people nearby. Mark pointed at me, furious. "Sophie, how dare you hit me? I'm the head of logistics. You're just a team leader." Most of the people around pretended not to see, not daring to get involved. "I'd hit David himself if you were here." Mark was instantly deflated. Before he could speak, the door to the president's office finally opened. David emerged with his arm around Chloe. I could clearly see a lipstick mark on David's neck. The same shade Chloe was wearing. It wasn't hard to guess what they had been doing inside. What do you two think this place is? Is this the example you set for the rest of the company? David's face was grim. Mark gritted his teeth and pointed at me. It's not my fault. David, I told her you were discussing work, but she insisted on going in. What was I supposed to do? David snorted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You really think you own the place, don't you? Thinking everyone has to bow down to you. Facing his harsh gaze, I felt my lip, which I had been biting, break. I think the one who thinks he owns the place is you. Can't you keep your bedroom affairs out of the office? I stared at David, demanding an answer. His face changed instantly. How dare you speak like that? Chloe is not the kind of person you think she is. I looked at him calmly, steeling myself. We need to talk. We've been married for 7 years. I don't want it to end like this. In a cloud of confusion. With that, I turned and walked back to the elevator. Tears streamed down my face against my will. Behind me, David was still gently comforting Chloe. As the elevator doors closed, I clearly saw Chloe give me the middle finger. In the coffee shop downstairs, I waited a long time for David. He sat across from me, a cigarette dangling from his lips, greedily inhaling and exhaling smoke. God, I was dying for one of these. He blew a puff of smoke in my face. So, what do you want to talk about? I coughed, waving the smoke away. He wouldn't smoke in front of Chloe, probably because he was worried about the baby's health. Not talking, David sneered, then threw a bank card on the table in front of me. Then let me tell you my plans. Chloe's baby must be born healthy, and I've told her I will give her a proper status. So, let's get a divorce. He looked at me resolutely. I had imagined this scene many times, but I never expected him to say it so casually. There's 10 million in the card. Consider it compensation. That's a lot. As for the house and cars, take whichever you want, as long as we can get a divorce. He tapped the table for emphasis at the end, as if worried I would refuse. I looked at the bank card on the table, my expression blank, and refused. I don't need the money. I just want what's rightfully mine. I looked at David coldly. At my words, David's expression turned angry. Chloe was right about you. You women are all greedy. Don't even think about getting half of my assets. I earned all of that through my own hard work. He slammed his hand on the table, glaring at me. I looked at him calmly and continued. If I really wanted it, you wouldn't get a single penny less. But I find your money disgusting. No, everything about you is disgusting. So, I won't take anything that has to do with you. What I want is the house that used to belong to me. Hearing this, David's attitude instantly changed. You mean the house your parents left you? No problem. Who would want to go to that old place anyway? But you're sure you don't want the money? Then you'd better write it down for me right now. Wait. I'll have someone send over the contract immediately. David excitedly called someone to print the contract. He then called Chloe, the two of them chatting and laughing for a long time. I looked at this stranger before me, an indescribable bitterness in my heart. So it wasn't that he was stressed. He just didn't like smiling at me. He never wanted me. After I signed, David excitedly kissed the contract twice. I watched him in silence. Just how worried was he that I would take his money? Back at the office, I overheard some colleagues talking about me. Married for 7 years and no kids. No wonder Mr. Green looked elsewhere. I couldn't stand it either. A male colleague said matter of factly. Exactly. If my son married someone like Sophie who can't have children, I'd fully support him getting a divorce. An older, long-time employee added. It's just hard on Vice President Chloe. If Sophie refuses to divorce, won't her baby suffer for no reason? Yeah. I turned the handle and walked in. They all immediately pretended to be busy, but I had heard enough of their backstabbing. Go on. I'm listening. My cold gaze swept over them. Most of them fell silent. They knew they were in the wrong. What's she putting on an act for? She's about to be replaced by the other woman anyway. Someone muttered under their breath, a little too loudly. Don't worry. Before I'm replaced, I'll make sure all of you who deserve to go are out of here. I said coldly. The office fell silent. For the rest of the day, I acted completely unfazed, as if I wasn't the one getting a divorce. That evening, when everyone else was heading home, the whole company went to an award ceremony. David was on stage, wearing the suit he wore when he first started his business. He was telling the employees his start-up story, the one he had told countless times. I sat in the back row with a cup of coffee, watching Chloe accept an award on stage. A strange sense of relief washing over me. There was a time when I worked day and night by David's side, when his business was struggling. I was the one who pulled connections for him, the one who sold my house to support him. When he gave speeches after his success, I, like Chloe now, stood behind him, silently supporting him. When he saved me from a group of thugs, getting beaten up by a dozen men in the process, I thought he would be my superhero, protecting me for life. But now I knew, people really do change. So do feelings. Even though it took me 7 years to see him clearly, maybe it wasn't such a sad thing after all. After watching David's speech one last time, I decided to completely leave the life that included him. But as I was passing through the emergency exit, I overheard Chloe talking to someone. "Yeah, I know, bro. Don't worry. The baby will be fine. It's just a little tough right now, being pregnant and still having to do that with him. I don't care. After the baby is born and I get the money, I'm out of here. You can handle the rest." I was stunned when I first heard it. When I realized what was being said, I immediately pushed the door open. A figure flashed by at the turn of the stairs, and Chloe walked towards me, flustered. When did you get here?" she asked nervously. I didn't answer her. Instead, I tried to get past her to chase the other person. I wasn't doing this to get back with David. I was doing it to prove to him that he was a fool who had been deceived. Seeing my intention, Chloe panicked even more and grabbed my clothes. "How much did you hear? Are you recording?" she asked urgently. I pushed her away and continued up the stairs. But I was too late. I didn't even get a clear look at what the other person was wearing. Returning to the landing, I looked at Chloe calmly. "You'd use a child just for money." Chloe's expression darkened. What do you know? David loves my child. I'm having this baby to make him happy. Unlike some people, who get pregnant only to be forced to have an abortion." She sneered. I was on the verge of losing my temper. But then David suddenly appeared. Chloe immediately started acting, clutching her stomach and stumbling towards him. "Chloe, what's wrong?" David cried out, rushing to embrace her. Chloe looked at me, saying nothing but shaking her head repeatedly. Seeing this, David walked up to me, grabbed my shoulders, and pinned me against the wall. "Sophie, are you even human? She's pregnant. How dare you bully her?" He stared at me fiercely. I didn't want to explain. The last bit of respect I had for him had completely vanished. He was an absolute idiot. "David, it's not her. I'm just not feeling well," Chloe said, feigning pity as she pulled at David's arm. David finally let me go, but gave me a hard shove. "You'd better stay away from Chloe from now on." He pointed at me, facing his warning. I left him with a single, resolute sentence. "David, the water that bears the boat is the same that swallows it up. This time, I'm the one giving up on you." Back at my old apartment, I packed up everything and moved all my belongings into the home that was truly mine alone. I even took a day off to move. But a day later, the HR department called to inform me that I had been fired. "Sophie, you're a good person, but this company is no longer the right place for you." I ignored the HR department's decision and went straight to the company. But this time, I was stopped by Mark again. "Sophie, you've been fired. What are you doing here?" He looked at me with contempt. "It's none of your business," I said, walking around him. Mark's face darkened, and he blocked me again. "I hope you know what's good for you. My cousin and David are the real deal. You'd better be smart and let go." He stared at me. Hearing this, a thought struck me. At the awards ceremony, where were you? I looked up at Mark. If I remembered correctly, Chloe had mentioned her, bro, and the only person at the company who was her brother was Mark. Mark's face changed, and he stammered, "I'm the head of logistics." "Of course. I was managing logistics," I sneered. Mark's reaction wasn't a direct admission, but it confirmed my suspicions were likely correct. "You'd better pray that your and Chloe's plan goes off without a hitch," I said coldly. "I don't know what you're talking about." Mark's face darkened. I knew he wouldn't admit it, and I didn't expect him to. I walked to David's office and pushed the door open without knocking. He was busy with paperwork and only glanced at me. "What?" "Decided to come apologize to Chloe." "It's no use." Chloe is focusing on her pregnancy right now. She has no time for you," he said condescendingly. I took out the dismissal notice and slapped it on his desk. David glanced at it and adjusted his glasses. "After what happened the other night, I think your continued presence at the company poses a significant risk to my child." "Of course. I know you're not a bad person, but people can be impulsive, right?" He finally looked at me directly, but I wasn't here for his explanation. Company policy states that for a team leader or hire to resign, a vice president or hire must sign off, I said flatly. David was taken aback, but in the end, he signed it. "I hope you can understand. When are we getting the divorce?" I interrupted him, not wanting to drag things out. "When I've dealt with these troublesome matters." He shook his head and looked away. I left without a second glance. On my way home, I made a call to my old mentor from my university days. "Ryan, it's me. From now on, don't take any more projects from David's company without me there. They can't handle the supply chain. In engineering, there are no small matters." Before I was with David, I was already a senior engineer and a certified architect. I had worked at my mentor's family-owned construction company, a major enterprise. I was their youngest senior engineer. My architectural designs had helped my mentor secure contracts for 80% of the commercial developments in the new high-tech zone. So when he found out I was giving it all up for a poor boy, he said he wanted to crack open my head to see what was inside. I admit I was a lovesick fool. I thought I would be the happiest woman in the world, but reality was so cruel. Ryan didn't answer me immediately. Instead, he asked where I was and said he would come pick me up. That evening, I had dinner with him and his wife, my other mentor who had first brought me into the industry. They were the closest people I had left in the world besides my parents. In front of them, I cried harder than I ever had. They didn't press me for details, just silently sat with me. Only after I had cried my fill did my mentor's wife, Olivia, put her arm around me and pat my back gently. "David, what did he do to you?" Olivia's question was sharp and to the point. At the mention of his name, my tears started flowing again. I poured out all the grievances I had been holding in, all the strength I had feigned. When I had finished, Ryan was so angry he was ready to go find David then and there. Olivia had to shout him down. "Silly girl, come back," Olivia said, wiping my tears, gently coaxing me to return. I looked up at her. "Olivia, I was the one who insisted on leaving. I was the one who let you both down. How can I have the face to go back?" I said in a low voice. But Olivia held my hand and said softly, "If Ryan and I were really angry with you, would we have collaborated with David later on?" Her words stuck with me. She was right. When David's business was on the verge of collapse, I was the one who had shamelessly gone to them for help. "It's all right, Sophie. Just think of it as getting a few years of experience outside. You can come back and be a manager. With me here, no one will dare to say a word against you." Ryan patted his chest, assuring me. I looked at them and started crying again, feeling foolish. They were so good to me. I was the one who was blind, choosing to follow David and give them up. After dinner and after my emotions had settled, they both drove me home. "Sophie, get some rest. Ryan and I will be waiting for you," Olivia said at my door. "Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Ryan." I bowed to them both. When I opened the door, I realized it wasn't locked. Just as I was thinking I might have been robbed, I saw David lying on the living room sofa. He heard the noise and looked up. When he saw it was me, he became even more brazen. "Get me some sobering soup, the one you're best at making. I was drinking with Mr. Peterson and the others all night. I feel terrible." He didn't even open his eyes as he ordered me around. "And why did you move without telling me?" Luckily, the driver was slow. Otherwise, if I had driven myself and something had happened, how would you be responsible? David's absurd words only made me think he was insane. I sneered at him. "I'd rather you had really gotten into an accident than be here now, shamelessly disgusting me." David opened his eyes, looking at me in a daze. "What did you just say?" He looked at me in disbelief. I made myself a cup of tea and leaned against the window, looking at him. "You wouldn't put yourself in that kind of danger. I know you. After all, if something happened to you, your little mistress and your illegitimate child wouldn't be taken care of, would they?" I sneered at him. He seemed to get angry, struggling to get up, only to trip over his own clothes and fall to the floor. "Aren't you going to help me up?" David looked at me, embarrassed and angry. He hated showing his embarrassing side to anyone, including me. Before, I would have considered his pride. I would have swallowed my own to protect his. But from the moment I decided to divorce him, I was determined not to do that anymore. You can figure it out yourself. I'm going to bed. With that, I turned to leave. But David gritted his teeth and shouted at me. I was wrong. Okay. I shouldn't have come here without your permission. But I really have nowhere else to go. You're not at home. There's no one to take care of me. Am I supposed to have a pregnant Chloe take care of me? His words were even more absurd. I didn't waste any more words and walked back towards my room. David, thinking I had softened, continued. Just that sobering soup you used to make. Maybe with a little deer antler. Before he could finish, I slammed the door shut, cutting him off. Sophie, what do you mean by that? We're not divorced yet. Aren't you being a little too much? His angry voice boomed. But I had no intention of dealing with him. I put in my earplugs and had a good night's rest. I let him stay because I knew I couldn't get rid of him. And I didn't want to waste my energy. As for teaching him a lesson by accident, that wasn't my intention. The next morning, I came out with a toothbrush in my mouth and glanced over. David was slurping instant noodles, his phone displaying stock market information. When he saw me, he immediately switched screens and started sending a voice message to Chloe. The noodles Chloe bought are so good. This flavor is amazing. He kept glancing at me as he spoke. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. He must be insane. How good can instant noodles be? When I was at home, didn't I always have to grill his steak and butter his toast just right? Even learn to make Italian food. When had he ever been so miserable as to eat instant noodles? You're pathetic. Forcing yourself to eat a bowl of instant noodles and pretending to be happy about it. I looked at David mockingly. You're ridiculous, I said again. But at the same time, I was thinking, he could tolerate Chloe giving him instant noodles, but he couldn't tolerate the Western food I made if it wasn't made with olive oil. Every time I thought about this, I felt a wave of nausea. He was so cheap. Sophie, are you done? David slammed the table. I chuckled. So you can get angry too. Get the divorce now, and it'll be over. How about that? Satisfied, I threw the divorce papers I had drafted at him. David's face was grim. He picked up the agreement and read it carefully, over and over. Don't worry. I'm not going to pull any tricks to steal your money. I sneered. Wasn't he just worried I would take his money? But I really didn't want a single penny of his money. And I wanted him to understand that without me, he wouldn't be able to keep a single penny of it. The reason I didn't want his money was so he could watch every penny slip through his fingers. And so he wouldn't come looking for me for money later, saving us from any further entanglement. What's your scheme? David finished reading the agreement but was still hesitant to sign. For the past 7 years, you've been completely dependent on me to survive. What can you do with the little salary you made as a team leader? And now you're saying you don't want a single penny. If you're not playing a trick, what are you doing? He gritted his teeth and stared at me, refusing to believe I really didn't want the money. If you don't want a divorce, then get out. Come back when you've figured it out. Do I look like I have a lot of time on my hands? I looked at him impatiently. In the end, David decided to go through with the divorce. But before that, he had a lawyer review the agreement and asked many related questions. Only after being assured that there were no problems with my divorce agreement did he finally sign it. When the people at the registration office saw the contents of the agreement, they all tried to persuade me not to do it. Young lady, you have to think about your future. You can't act on impulse. I knew they meant well and wanted to help me get more, but I didn't need it. I had my own plan. Finally, at my insistence, I successfully divorced David. TSK. I'm free. Completely free. David deliberately flaunted in front of me. Indeed, it must have been hard cheating on me all this time. From now on, you can officially marry your little mistress. I glanced at him flatly. He snorted, seeming displeased that I called Chloe his mistress. We were married. After all, if you have any difficulties in the future, you can come to me. I can still keep that 10 million for you, David said. A rare moment of humanity. I ignored him and walked straight to a Maybach parked by the side of the road. Olivia was waiting for me. Let's go home. Olivia sneered at David, then pulled me into the car. Back at Ryan and Olivia's company, my return was met with a very warm welcome. I felt an unprecedented warmth here. The authority Ryan gave me allowed me to fully display my talents. Almost everyone unconditionally supported me. Half a month later, after working overtime and sleeping only 4 hours a night, I finally completed my first project for the new company. Director Sophie is truly our company's youngest senior engineer. The plan for the last major commercial plaza in the new development zone passed the bidding with an almost perfect score. My proposal was successfully selected. I heard that before me. They had held several bidding meetings, but could never find a suitable construction plan. Ryan immediately threw a celebration party for me that day. At the party, I found my purpose in life, designing in my own style, receiving the applause I deserved. This was the life I was meant to live. The news spread, and many related companies and material suppliers wanted to build a good relationship with us. Ryan and Olivia were out socializing every day, leaving the company entirely in my hands. Suddenly, one day, Olivia came to me. "Sophie, I have a dinner party tonight. David might be there. Do you want to go?" Olivia asked tentatively. Hearing his name again, I still felt a little dazed. "If you don't want to go, that's fine. I just wanted to maintain our relationship with the suppliers. I didn't expect David to be there too. I'll go." I shook my head and agreed. Olivia pursed her lips and, after confirming several times, decided to take me with her. When Olivia and I appeared in the private room, David was clearly stunned. Chloe, who had been sitting obediently beside him, was also angry when she saw me. "Sophie, have you no shame? It's been so long since the divorce, and you're still stalking David." Chloe scolded me. Mark, at her side, also sneered at me. I heard she didn't take a single penny in the divorce. She must be regretting it now, Mark said mockingly. Chloe snorted, then grabbed a check and threw it in my face. "Cut the crap. Write down how much you want, and stop bothering David in the future." She looked at me with disgust. Olivia intercepted the check and tore it to pieces. Chloe was stunned. She thought our appearance was a coincidence. David's brow furrowed. He looked at me first. "Miss Sun, who is this?" He sensed something different. Olivia sneered and pulled me to a seat. "You don't recognize your own ex-wife after just a few days of divorce?" Olivia looked at David coldly. David was a little embarrassed. Olivia continued. "She's the mysterious tycoon who recently won the last plaza project in the new development zone. The senior engineer our company has been strongly promoting. My husband and I are her former mentors. She gave up a high-paying job for a scumbag, even completely quit the industry. I wonder if you know that scumbag." Olivia continued, looking at David. She had just asked him if he didn't recognize his own ex-wife, and now she was talking about a scumbag. Wasn't that just pointing at David and calling him one? David became more and more embarrassed, and also a little anxious. Later, my little junior got married, but after the wedding, her useless husband's company kept having problems, like a broken capital chain, or no one wanting to partner with them, and so on. In the end, it was my little junior who came to my husband and asked him to help their company. That's how they survived and even developed well. But can you believe it? My little junior was forced to divorce in the end. Don't you think her husband is an idiot? Olivia had always been a strong woman. When she said these things, she didn't care about the opinions of the others present. Now, her aura was completely suppressing David, although David's face was grim. Today, it was a joint invitation from several major building material company bosses to Olivia. How could he dare to cause a scene? Then everyone started eating, and one by one, they toasted me and Olivia. David looked at me with a complex expression. "Miss Sophie, I'd like to propose a toast to you." He coughed. Everyone at the table had toasted me except for him. Of course, he couldn't be left out. I looked at David coldly. I was here today to teach him a lesson. How could I agree to drink with him? David's hand, holding the wine glass, was awkwardly suspended in the air. "Miss Sophie, a toast to you," he repeated, but I just looked at him flatly. David could only turn to Olivia for help, but Olivia was enjoying her food, completely ignoring him. The atmosphere became more and more awkward. David was a very proud man, but today I wanted to see when he would finally lose his temper. "Miss Sophie, I was wrong about what happened before. I apologize to you." Finally, David gritted his teeth, stood up, and looked at me, downing a glass of wine. Olivia suddenly spoke up, sneering at David. "An apology should look like an apology. You don't even say what you did wrong. You call that an apology. Olivia's words stunned David. After a moment's hesitation, David finally gritted his teeth and said, I was the one who cheated. I really did wrong, Miss Sophie. I will do my best to compensate her. After saying this, David's face turned visibly red. I held my wine glass, still not intending to speak to him. Seeing this, David thought his apology wasn't sincere enough. He immediately pulled Chloe over and barked, Hurry up and apologize to Miss Sophie. He kept winking at Chloe. I remembered a similar situation a few years ago. David had said something wrong and offended a big shot. In the end, he pulled me along to apologize. At that time, I endured it for the sake of our family's business. But from the looks of Chloe today, she didn't seem to have the same awareness. What did you say? You want me to apologize to her? Who does she think she is? Chloe was furious. All the bosses present were stunned. They unconsciously moved a little further away from David. How dare you speak like that? David glared at Chloe. I could understand why he was doing this. After all, after I had Ryan stop collaborating with David, their company's business had practically come to a standstill. And today, I was not only representing Ryan's company, but I was also the big shot that all the company bosses present needed to please. How could he dare to offend me? But Chloe was short-sighted. She thought she would be pampered in any situation. Olivia put down her wine glass and wiped her mouth. Mr. Green, it seems you don't need to partner with us to do well, she said. Her words made David even more annoyed. Immediately, David barked at Chloe. Either you apologize to Miss Sophie, or you get out. Chloe looked at him defiantly, then turned and left. You. David was furious. He glanced at me, perhaps thinking that if it were me, I would have cooperated with him. Olivia shook her head and stood up, taking me with her. Well, gentlemen, it seems today is not a good day to talk business. We can discuss any collaborations later. With that, Olivia left with me, and once we left, the one who suffered, of course, was David. If he couldn't control his own woman, how could today's dinner party have turned into this? The bosses present were very dissatisfied with David. This incident spread throughout their entire circle. Almost everyone knew that the wife David had abandoned had become the big shot who determined whether they could eat or not. After that dinner, David called me several times. The first 2 times were to explain. The next 2 were to ask for help. And the last 2 were just to curse me out. Because of his own doing, many companies had terminated their collaborations with him. Some even used this incident to show their sincerity to me. At first, David could still barely hold on with the assets I had left him. But his illusion of prosperity would collapse overnight. More and more companies were unwilling to partner with them, even taking pride in isolating them. Some even used David's infidelity leading to the company's downfall as a cautionary tale for their employees. Sophie, for the sake of our marriage, please help me. One day, David called me again. Why don't you go find your beloved vice president? I responded flatly. That bitch Chloe. The baby wasn't even mine. It was Mark's. And she's not even his cousin. She's his mistress. She ran off with my last bit of insurance and Mark. A total of 20 million. I could hear the despair in David's voice. I could even imagine how Chloe must have gloated about playing him. And how regretful David must have been. She said she was only after my money. She and Mark had planned it all along. After the baby was born, they